All right, fastest 15 minutes on the internet, fastest 15 minutes in social media. My name is Judson Powell. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'd like to talk about the origins of why white folks hate black folks. We're going to talk about why do the white folks hate the black folks, and why was white supremacy ever thought about, and why was white supremacy created, and why is it still existing in today's society. So now, let's go back 30,000 years. Let's go back about 30,000 years, all right? Because we know that there are certain things that are true, all right? Now, this is one of the things, and this is what a lot of scholars and historians and Egyptologists and all these people, a lot of them, this is what they believe, all right? Back about 30,000 years ago, the Kemetic priest, the priest that ran the Kemetic spiritual system and the Kemetic spiritual science, they created a papyrus. It was a drawing, basically, on the walls. And this drawing was pervasive in all of the temples in Egypt. All right. This drawing was pretty much in every single temple. And don't get me wrong, it's not like like we view church or something like that. Not the same thing. All right. So they were putting these images in the temples. And here's what went with the image. The image was of the human race. The image was of the human race. Okay. Now, let's talk timeline. Juxtapose that to that we know that the Sphinx is it, and I've said this a million times. We know from water markings, from just natural progression of the rock and all that. We know that the Sphinx is at least 50,000 years old. So we're talking about 20,000 years later. Now remember, throughout all of this time, and there is research that shows that black people were the only, or melanated people were the only people that were on the earth at a certain time. All right. And then all these other different people basically came about or evolved about or were created. All right. So now go to Google, if you can, go to Google, pull up that papyrus. And it has been, and don't get me, it has also been tampered with because white people took it but there were too many copies of it. So that's why I guess they put it in all of the temples so that you couldn't just go and change it and copy it or do whatever you wanted to, because there were too many copies of it. And white people, of course, because white people and Caucasians have always taken whatever Africa did, stole it, and then tried to make it their own. So there are copies that have been tampered with. All right. But the original papyrus, what it depicted the four sub races of the human race. And there were four, and they did it by color. They did not do it by nationality, location, or anything like that. And basically what it said was that there were black people, there were brown people, there were red people, and there were yellow people. And everybody else was considered to be non-human. And here is why. Once again, we go back to that original story in the scriptures, in the Bible, okay? And everybody always asks, well, if God created male and female, he created he, and then in the next verse, in the next couple of verses or whatever, he recreates man again. But this time he creates man out of the rib, creates woman out of the rib of man. Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad suggested that was the Caucasians showing that there were two separate creations. One was a spiritual creation, which the human race was, and the other was a physical creation. And so we go through, and that's what in fact, the whole Bible, like in the New Testament, everything in the New Testament is about that. It's like everything is spirit versus flesh, spirit versus flesh. But up until a certain time, there was nothing fleshly. Everything was spiritual. Okay. And here, let me prove this to you. all of the indigenous people of the earth, whether they be Native Americans, and I'm using these terms very loosely because most of them are not what we, but be they Native Americans who are on Turtle Island, which we call North America now, or if they were in South America, or if they were in even in the Arctic Circle in Antarctica, because we had Eskimos who are indigenous people in Australia or that part of the world. We have the Aborigines. So all of the indigenous people of the world would fit into these four categories. We have Asians who are in Asia, China, Taiwan, Japan, etc. And then we have even the Pacific Islanders who spun off from them. So we have all of these different people. Well, all of these people were considered human. And there were certain traits about these humans that were never violated. All right. And those traits were that they respected the land, they respected the earth, they respected the animals, they reverenced God, or what they thought was God, as far as the sun, the moon, the stars, all of these things, the rotation of the planets, all of these things, the harvest, the crops, the planting of the crops, the harvesting of crops, because they knew that sustained and it gave life. But the fleshly, and I can't say human because human meant color. So human meaning men, people of color. And so this is the origin, in my opinion. I'm not saying, and there are other people that have the same opinion, but in my opinion, that is the origin of the hatred of white people. Why they always want, and look, and you can go to any of these civilizations, Aztecs, Mayans, they were all considered to be human. And if you look in Aztec or Mayan culture, or you look in Aboriginal culture, and they were about certain things like healing, all of these different things. But so then when the Caucasian, because once again, going back to the theory of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it was like, okay, all of a sudden here comes the Caucasian. Well, the Caucasian was a mutation. Okay, the Caucasian was a mutation. And we all know, if you know your history, and go study this stuff, don't just take my word for it, go study this stuff. And stop just, putting up YouTube videos. YouTube is cool, y'all, but it is not research. Okay, even my videos are not research. You can take what I say, but take what I say and then go and research it and study it. Okay, so you really know the truth. All these people walking around talking about they are this origin and they are that origin. Look, let me explain something to you. Let's go to the library at Alexandria. Okay, first of all, how did it get the name Alexandria? Because it was named after it was renamed after Alexander the Great. But when the library was destroyed there, if you look at the papyrus that was taken from that time, the papyrus show what? Ships. Okay, what do you use ships for, you guys? All right, so that's what I'm trying to tell you. Think about what it is. And so so now when all of these things start coming out, first of all, America, North or South America were not empty. Okay, white folks didn't just roll up on North and South America and there was nobody there. There were humans there. There were people of color, the people of the sun. They were there. They were already there, and I always used to wonder, even in my own family, there are stories like of my great-great-grandmother, and she's listed in the census, but she's not listed as a slave. In fact, people say she was never a slave. All right. So she was just there. Almost like Melchizedek. She had no beginning, no end, genealogy, nothing, she just was there. But they always talked about the way she looked, that she was dark skinned and had gray eyes. She was dark skinned, had gray eyes. She was, blue black, as we say in the hood. She was blue black. All right. And then my grandfather, a generation apart or whatever, he had the same eyes. He and his twin brother had the same eyes and had the same look. And now I'm starting to believe, so I'm looking at it like, okay. And then we had this brother that was doing research in South Carolina, and all of a sudden he comes up on all of these, like who dug the canals? Like in South Carolina, there's a system of canals. All right. How did they get there? All right. I'm just saying. Okay. But they were there, they're conflicting reports. But most historians say, look, they were there before people. But how could they be there before people if they're there, if they were there? There had to be somebody built them. All right. So, and we have all kinds of families that have those type of stories. So let me get back to the original point. The original point is that half of it, we're talking about spiritually, the people of the Most High, the people of the Sun, because the Most High equals what? The Sun. And so everything that they did after they discovered this papyrus, especially Alexander, you got to understand, Kemet was the most conquered place on the face of the earth. Even the people there, they drove out all of our ancestors. All right. And where did they go? They went to West and East Africa. Half of them went west, half of them went east, some of them went north. The Moors went north. All right. The people that we call the Moors, they went north. All right. Rest of us, some of us went east, some of us went west. Okay, the ones that went west, that's who the white man chased down. He chased us down because why? Because he understood that we were what? The race of master builders. How do you think they built this country? We were the ones that had the woodworking, the iron working, all of those things that are talked about in scripture, but are talked about in code. Okay, they're talked about in the scriptures, but talked about in the Quran, in the Bible, in the Talmud, in the Vedas, wherever you look, those people are talked about, but they're talked about basically at a lower level than what they really were. The reason why they came to West Africa was because they knew that was the race of master builders. Because they could have easily had gone anywhere else on earth, but they knew that all the other people that were on earth were the descendants of those master builders. So that's what the Caucasian understood and knew. And that's how they ended up being able to create this new world order. So what they did was they took everything, all of our wisdom, our knowledge, and our education and everything, our universities, everything that we invented. Everything was invented, by us, by the Cushites, by the Kemets, by the people in Kemet, or by the people in Ethiopia. Everything was invented by us. So for people to sit up here, and especially black people to sit up there and talk about how you ain't black, you are crazy. I'm just going to let you know, you're crazy. Go and study and figure out who you are, because you don't know who you are. Because if you knew who you were, you would not want to be of any other race except for the human race. All right. Because those are the most loving, caring people. Look, and I always say it like this. We can prove it. Why? Because everybody that has committed an atrocity within the world has been what? Non-human, of the race that was what? Of the flesh. Not of the race that was of the spirit. Think about it. War, the Crusades, everything. I mean, all of the things that the wars and rumors of wars never happened from any indigenous people. What indigenous people started wars? And you even have to be careful when you read up on stuff like that, because it was written by Caucasians. It was documented by Caucasians to say that it was a certain way, when a lot of times it really was not. Anyway, I gotta go. That's the fastest 15 minutes on the internet, fastest 15 minutes in social media. My name is Judson Powell. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, hit all the buttons. Just hit buttons. Bah, 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 bah. Hit buttons. I love you.